Welcome to chapter 3. I'm so excited to be with you. We're moving along. Congratulations. You passed the assessment on chapter 2. Now turn with me to page 21. Let's get through this chapter. It's a very good chapter. It's going to give you an excellent foundation for the state exam. All right. What I'm going to do is go through this page by page with you, stop in areas I think will be on your state exam, and at the end I'll read a summary. Now, if you have not read chapter 3, this is the time to pause. Do not go any further. Pause this video. Read the entire chapter from beginning to the end. Take the assessment, grade yourself. I know, I keep repeating it. For those that did it, good job. Let's keep moving forward. If you did not do it, do that first before we continue. All right, guys, agency, brokerage, and ethical consideration. On page 22, I want to start off with agency. Agency, I want you to highlight fiduciary responsibilities. That's right there. So the role of a broker as the agent to his or her principal is a fiduciary relationship. All right, that falls within the requirements of the law of agency. And a fiduciary relationship is one of trust and confidence. This is in which an agent is responsible for all the monies or properties of others. It requires putting the principal's interest above all others, including the broker's own interest. The agent is also known as a fiduciary. There's different types of agencies that you're going to see in the next section, but I want you to focus on fiduciary responsibilities. These are your 5 fiduciary responsibilities. Okay, they're care, obedience, accounting, loyalty, and disclosure. All right. Now, that's going to be on your state exam, and you're going to forget. So we have a nice way to remind you right here. Old car. If you could remember old car, the R will not be used, but it's a nice way to remember old car. If you could remember the term old car, you're going to remember what your fiduciary responsibilities are. Okay? So the O, what's the O for? Obedience, what's the L for? Loyalty, what's the D for? Disclosure, what's the C for? Care, what's the A for? Accountability or accounting. And that's how you're going to remember these 5 critical responsibilities as a fiduciary. This will be on the state exam. All right. So what I want you to do is to spend the next 20-30 minutes on this on page 23. On the bottom of actually 22, it starts with care. I want you to start to highlight what is care, what is obedience on page 23, what is accounting, which is also on page 23, loyalty on the bottom of 23, and then on to disclosure on page 24. This information is going to be on your state exam. I cannot stress it enough. When you are in an agency relationship, you owe the principal, that's the client, the principal, these 5 fiduciary responsibility of loyalty, of care, of disclosure. They're very, 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 very important. This is fundamental. This is real estate 101. You got to get this down packed. So take time to review the next couple of pages so you get deeper into each one. But this is a fast way to bring these right in bullet points. Old car. If you can remember old car, you're going to do well on the state exam. All right. So on page 24, we finished discussing the old car. Okay. Your fiduciary responsibility. Now, just because you owe your client fiduciary responsibility, it does not mean that you owe nothing else to anyone else. There's general duty of fair dealing. that is owed to everyone you deal with, whether they're a client or a customer. Okay, remember, a client and a customer relationship is different. A customer is someone you're working with, but you don't have a fiduciary responsibility. You have to deal with them fairly and honestly. A client, in this case, is the principal, and you are the agent to that principal, and you owe those 5 fiduciary responsibilities. Although an agency relationship binds the agent to the principal with certain specific duties, remember that real estate licenses are required to deal fairly and honestly with the parties. So if your principal, your client, says, look, you got to look out for my interest. I don't want to disclose that I have a leaking oil tank in my backyard. I don't want to disclose that. You owe me loyalty and confidentiality. Well, no. In this case, that's not, you still owe the public honesty and fair dealing, right? Just because I care about you as a client and I respect you and I want to take good care of you, it doesn't mean I'm going to be deceptive to other parties. You still owe the general public honesty and fair dealing. Make sense? Are you following? All right, good. Because I want to move on to broker-salesperson relationship. There's a relationship between the broker and the salesperson. Okay, and we're gonna talk about that. There's money involved. There's a lot of things you need to be aware of. We're gonna show you samples of some contracts. We're gonna show you what a dual agency agreement looks like in the next coming pages. But for now, let's start at page 24 at the very, very bottom. When a real estate agent joins a broker, most of the time they're hired as an independent contractor. But I want you to look at independent contractor versus employee. Just highlight that just so you could see what the differences are. All right, guys, so we're going to touch briefly on a broker-salesperson relationship. I want you to understand that most salespersons are hired as independent contractors, not as employees. They're not employees of the broker, they're independent contractors. And there's a major difference. I want you to look at the bottom of page 24 and look at the difference between independent contractors versus employees. And then there's a sample of the independent contractor agreement on page 26. So if you go to page 26, it'll give you an idea of what that contract looks like. It's a number of pages long. Just want to put that out there for you to see, okay? Now, we're going to go on the bottom of page 25 where it says broker's compensation. The broker's compensation is specified in the listing agreement. Buyer-broker agreements, management agreements, and other contracts with the principal and is subject to negotiation between the parties. All right? Now, compensation is often computed as a percentage. Your commission is usually a percentage, but it doesn't have to be a percentage. You could agree to get paid by hour. You could get paid a flat fee. It doesn't have to be a percentage. You could decide to charge $10,000 for your services, as long as both parties agree. It could be 4% of the purchase price or 8% of the purchase price. It could be just $17 an hour or $700 an hour. It doesn't matter, as long as both parties agree. There's no agency that regulates your commission as a broker. The state of New Jersey does not regulate commission. It is negotiable, and it's between the broker and the principal. Now, how do you get paid exactly? I want you to pay attention to these keywords: ready, willing, and able buyers, right? So the commission or fees usually considered to be earned when the broker has accomplished the work for which he or she was hired, unless there is an agreement to the contrary. After a listing broker procures a ready, willing, and able buyer, the seller technically is liable for the broker's commission. All right, so you technically earn your commission when you bring that buyer that is ready, willing, and able to purchase this property. Okay, that's when you earn your commission. Obviously, we don't get paid at that moment because of how the contracts are written. We get paid at the end when the closing takes place. But we technically earn it. Our commission is earned. And the seller owes us money as soon as we bring a buyer that's ready, willing, and able to purchase the property. On page 25, there's more on that, so you can feel free to take a look. Now let's go to page 31. Okay, salesperson's compensation. There's a little bit on that. You definitely want to know that for your own purposes. Let's go through that. But then right next to it, there's a disclosure of agency that's important. Okay. Now, I want you to highlight disclosure of agency and highlight on page 31 Consumer Information Statement, a CIS. Now, this Consumer Information Statement tells a potential buyer or a seller of yours what the potential agency relationships are. There is the relationship of a buyer's agent or seller's agent. There's potentially the disclosed dual agent. There is the transaction broker that doesn't really owe you fiduciary responsibility. This form, the CIS form, the Consumer Information Statement form, gives an explanation, a thorough explanation to the potential client. Essentially, what the state is saying is that before you get too deep into your conversation with a buyer or a seller, you need to hurry up and get that CIS to them so that they can understand it. In fact, picture this. You're at a wedding, you're hanging out with your friends, and you're by the bar, and then you overhear a conversation about someone buying a house. They turn around and say, "Oh, that's the realtor." They point to you and they say, "That's the realtor." And then the gentleman comes up to you and says, "Hey, look, I'm looking to purchase a house, but I need to buy in like the next 3 days. Here's what's going on. My wife, my daughter." And as they speak, you're like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa. Don't talk no more." You're at a wedding. You're like, "Shut up. Don't talk anymore. I got to run to the car. Literally, I got to run to the car, find the Consumer Information Statement first, give it to you, then you could talk to me." I mean, it's bizarre, this example that I'm giving you. But that's how I want you to remember the Consumer Information Statement. You don't want the potential client to disclose information before understanding what your relationship or the nature of your relationship could be with them. All right? So that's on page 31. Highlight that. There's also on page 32 and 33 an example of an exclusive buyer agency agreement. The consumer information, you could see it, a sample of it on page 34. Just wanted to get that out to you. All right. And let's go to dual agency, okay? So we discussed your agency agreement, your agency relationship, your fiduciary responsibilities, and also there's a dual agency. What happens when you represent both parties? You know, there's a conflict of interest that's possible there, right? So you gotta walk a fine line when you serve as a dual agent. New Jersey allows it, but they do require upfront disclosure. Highlight dual agency. I really want you to read that material, go through it over and over, understand it, because that is all over the state exam. Dual agency is all over the state exam. So page 36 on the bottom, go through the entire section, especially when we talk about conflict of interest, okay? So let me just quickly read on the bottom of 37 on that. Conflict of interest may occur when the agent is called to a listing interview and find a seller ready to let the property go at a ridiculously low price. The court have held that even though the property is not yet listed, the seller is relying on the broker's expertise and may become a principal. The licensee who decides to buy the property immediately without notifying the seller of its true value is operating under a conflict between his or her interest and that of the seller. Okay? A more subtle situation occurs when no financial advantages occurs to the agent, but the agent has an indirect interest in the transaction. The agent should disclose, for example, if he is a member of the Boy Scouts committee looking for a campsite, or if he is trying to locate a home for his mother to purchase. This is very, very important to point out. Potential conflict of interest. And in dual agency, you're more likely to be walking that line of a conflict of interest. Why is it? Because there is an interest that you have as an agent when you have a dual agency transaction. What is that interest? You're earning both sides of the commission. Most of the time, when you get a listing agreement and you get a percentage of payout, let's suppose it's 5%. In most cases, 2.5% is retained by the listing agent and 2.5% by the selling agent, which is the buyer's agent, right? If you're a dual agent, you take both sides. So there is a financial interest. We want to make sure that that financial interest that you have as a disclosed dual agent is not put ahead of your principal, the buyer and the seller. All right. On page 39, highlight offsite conditions and Megan's Law. On the bottom of page 42, professional organizations. The state wants you to understand that, and this is how powerful the National Association of Realtors are, that we're talking about them and they're not regulated by the state. To use the word realtor is not your title. It's not the title you get when you get your real estate license. When you pass this exam and go get your license, you cannot be a realtor. You're a licensed real estate salesperson. You could only use the term realtor when you become a member of the National Association of Realtors. So there are realtors that are licensed. It should be that all realtors are licensed, but not all licensed agents are realtors. All right? So it's very important that that's going to come up on your state exam. The National Association of Realtors, not the government, not the state. The National Association of Realtors gives you the right to use the title realtor. That's enough for this chapter. It's a heavy, heavy chapter. I want you to spend a lot of time on it, especially around old car and around dual agency. Conflict of interest. Dig into that. The CIS. I'm going to read a summary. There's a ton of other things in there that I didn't highlight, but we'll pick it up in the summary. But I want you to walk away confident with some of this foundational stuff we're talking about that's going to help you with the state exam. Now turn with me, if you'd like, and follow me on page 43 with the summary. Real estate brokerage is bringing together for a fee or a commission of people who wish to buy, sell, exchange, or lease real estate. In New Jersey, real estate agents can act as 1, a seller's agent, 2, buyer's agent, 3, disclosed dual agent, and 4, transaction broker, or a seller's agent on property on which the firm is acting as the seller's agent and transaction broker on other properties. A transaction broker works with buyers, sellers, or both without representing either one of them in an agency relationship. So a transaction broker says, I'm here exactly for this transaction. I'm just a coordinator of the transaction. I don't owe you any fiduciary responsibility, Mr. Seller. I don't owe you responsibility either, Mr. Buyer, other than my responsibility to be fair and honest. So I'm going to be fair and honest, and I'm just going to deal with this transaction. That's a transaction broker. Do they exist? Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And they probably have less liability on their errors and omission policy. What's an errors and omission policy? A policy you need to have as an agent through your brokerage to make sure that if something comes up, you're covered. And your brokerage is covered. Okay, so real estate brokerage is commonly governed by the law of agency. The real estate broker is the agent hired by either a buyer or a seller of real estate to find or sell a particular parcel of real estate. The person who hires the broker is the principal or client. The principal and the agent have fiduciary relationship under which the agent owes the principal the duties of care, obedience, accounting, loyalty, and disclosure. These are the old car fiduciary responsibilities. Agents are required to disclose material information about a property, as well as disclosures required by Megan's Law and standard off-site conditions notices. Misrepresentation needs to not be intentional. Unintentional or negligent misrepresentation is also possible. Ways to avoid misrepresentation includes not stating opinions as facts and referring the questioner directly to an expert source. The best defense against claims arising from such situation is disclosure, either before the client acted or as soon as the problem has been discovered. Licensees may function as dual agents, but only after following strict rules governing disclosure of their role. Undisclosed dual agency is illegal. All right, so New Jersey's Consumer Fraud Act sets strict penalties to anyone giving false or misleading information about real estate, but sets some exceptions for licensees who can prove they were not aware of the deception, had tried diligently to ascertain the true picture, and were relying on information supplied by professionals, government employees, or sellers. The broker's compensation in real estate sales generally takes place in the form of commission, which is often, though not necessarily, a percentage of real estate selling price. The broker is considered to have earned a commission when he or she procures a ready, willing, and able buyer for a seller or brings out the meetings of the mind. That's going to be on your state exam. The meetings of the mind is when you're able to get the seller and the buyer to agree, to come to the meetings of the mind, to agree on the purchase price and on the terms. It's called meetings of the mind. This will be on your state exam. Once you do that as a broker, you have technically earned your commission. You brought a buyer that's ready, that's willing and able, and brought them at the meetings of the mind with the seller. So, most contracts of sale, however, provide that the commission only be paid at closing of title. So although we earn commission as soon as we bring the two parties at the meetings of the mind, we don't get paid yet. We get paid at closing. Salesperson may assist brokers as either employees or contractors, independent contractors. The salesperson is the broker's agent and usually the seller's sub-agent, or if specifically retained as such, the buyer's sub-agent. Many of the general questions, many of the general operations of a real estate brokerage are regulated by the real estate license law. In addition, state and federal antitrust laws prohibit brokers from conspiring to fix prices or allocate customers or markets. Liability claims against brokers for damages caused to buyers or sellers may arise from a breach of fiduciary duty, failure to observe standards of care, conflict of interest, or misrepresentation. Professional organizations providing a code of ethics for their members include the National Association of Realtors, the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, the State Realtor Association. New Jersey Realtors offer a variety of educational courses, including a specific course leading to designation of Graduate Realtor Institute, GRI. Numerous other designations are available to Realtor members. This is the summary of Chapter 3. We have come a long way in the first 3 chapters in understanding the basic operation of a real estate brokerage, a broker, an agent, a buyer, a seller, the law of agency, dual agency, fiduciary responsibilities. You have learned so much in just the first 3 chapters. We got more to go, but right now I feel that you are ready to take this assessment. So let's go ahead, take the Chapter 3 assessment. Remember, when you're done with the assessment and you pass the assessment, do not go on to Chapter 4. Let's read Chapter 4. Let's spend 2 hours if you need to, going through that chapter thoroughly, giving yourself the exam at the end of Chapter 4, grading yourself from the back of the book, making sure you're doing all right with that exam. Then you click on to Chapter 4, and I will see you there when you're ready. Take care.